This is a quick documentation of the process of changing brake pads on the front of a Toyota Tundra 2000. The process, I remember now, just sucks. It's not really that hard, but it's not fun. These are my old brake pads. You can see how worn they are. I don't have very good light in here, so this one, they're, I don't know, maybe a quarter of an inch. But that's what this very gentle squeaking sound is when you're putting them, when you're stopping. There's the new one, so you can see the difference between the two as far as how big they are. How much brake pad there actually is. There's some. I bought these because mine are really old and broken. I'll show you where those go in just a second when I get this one off. Taking your wheel off is actually a very simple process. I'm not going to document that at all because if you don't know how to take the lug nuts off, you shouldn't be doing this. So the process of replacing these is actually quite simple. There's actually two bolts that hold it on. There's a bolt here, just 17 millimeter, and a bolt down here that's 17 millimeter. Those two come out, and then I mentioned the spring. There's a spring right there that pushes them apart when you're not pushing your brake, and this is another little one that just holds. There's two pins. This pin right here along the top, this round pin, and there's another round pin right there. This holds in place. It actually goes inside of it. So those pins pull out after those two bolts are taken out. The brake pads I bought were old or cheap, really cheap ones. You can't tell very good in this image, but these cheaper ones actually produce a lot more dust and are just a lot more dirty, and they wear out a lot quicker. These were $25 or something like that. These newer ones that I bought were like $40, so they'll last a lot longer, and they won't be as dirty. You see the outside of my wheel, all of that black soot garbage is from those brakes. They just are really dusty and dirty. You see inside of here, it's just nasty and it's all over. That's what happens when you buy cheap brake pads. So here's the bolts that you take out. I gave them a little persuasion, but these ones come out. That one, and you do the same to that one right there. And once you get the bolts out, this line is still attached. This is your brake line right here. It actually pushes the fluid into the cylinders here, and then it squeezes them. I have to hit this with a hammer. It's probably not the best thing to knock it loose off of the actual rotor, but it works. And then I prop it up on top here, just like that. It's just sitting there. And then start taking the pieces apart. Can't really videotape taking the pieces apart because I'm doing it with one hand and it's a pain. But you take this out, pull it out of this side, pull it out of that side. That's out. See, it's just that. This one pops out. Similarly, just pull it out of that side. Pull it out of that side. And then it doesn't come out until you take this pin out. Mine pulled out by hand. kinda. See how it's pulling the brake. So I need to put the phone down so I can hold this one with my other hand. But then this pin is wrapped around that. So, oh, there it goes. So, that one's out. And you might need to, I feel like this one's a little bit tighter. You might need to persuade them a little. But then this pin, there's that pin, just pulls out. I'm going to replace that because that's old. And the brakes just fall all over hell because nothing's holding them in place anymore. Until I take this one out, then they're out. So this is what your brakes look like. Your actual pad or your caliper or whatever looks like without the pads in. So these are what push out. They push out. This goes in, and that's what squeezes your brakes together. So when you're putting the new ones on, your other ones have obviously, these little things have to push back in. These cylinders have to push back in. What that does is it pushes brake fluid. Pushes brake fluid back into your master cylinder. So when I started this process, my brake fluid was down to about here, and then when I pushed the brake fluid back in on the first caliper, it pushed it back into the master cylinder. So you could, if you have too much brake fluid in there initially, it'll flip over the top and leak all over your floor, which I've done. It's pretty awesome. So now it's just a matter of pushing these back, and there may be a good process that I'm doing wrong, but I just use these and grab them and push them back, and so it's a slow process to put the fluid back, because when you push one side, the other side comes out. You get it. Alright, so it's back on. You can see the width of this is the rotor, that's one brake pad, this is the other brake pad, so they're huge compared to the width of the old ones. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, where is it? So that's how thin the old ones were. Just terribly thin compared to these suckers that are huge. So there's no real art to putting this stuff back in. You just have to align this back on as best as possible. Get at least one bolt started, the other bolt started, just so it's sitting in there so it doesn't fall off and pull this brake line off and break it. Then you have all kinds of problems on your hands. So this is the little nipple that you loosen to bleed the brakes when you put them on, so that they can get tight around the rotor. You can see the new pin that I put on here. It goes in between this long pin that's going in here. That one's tougher to put in than this one. This one's really easy. It goes in that hole there, and then it fits in the middle. Where's my hand? Right there. So there's a top pin and the bottom pin, that one and that one. So everything's loose right now. Well, kind of loose. You can kind of see it's sort of loose. So I just need to tighten all the bolts back up. Then I go get my wife and she bleeds the brakes, and it's a fun process.